Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel once again. Today I'm going to do just a quick 300-mile review video of the V-Strom 800DE 2023 model made by Suzuki. Doesn't technically have quite 300 miles, but I'm at 284 thus far. Some of you saw my last few videos that I did where I rode it from the dealership home, then I rode it on the street. And then I do have another video that I just released not too long ago showing me going off-road with it. So it was actually a blast to ride off-road. Currently, I'm not really able to ride. I did get minorly injured, not anything to do with the bike, just in general. So I probably won't be riding it for the next few weeks, but I figured I did want to post a review video. It's not really necessarily a pro and con video. It's mostly the things that I've picked up on and learned about the bike as I've gone with it. So the first thing is going to be my perspective on the on and off-road capabilities of this bike. The on-road capabilities are excellent. It gets great gas mileage. I believe it gets about 50 miles per gallon, but if you ride conservatively and you adjust some of the settings, you could probably get 60 to 70 miles per gallon. The tank itself is fairly large, as you can see. This bad boy is a 5.3 gallon tank. Great for touring, great for long distance commuting, highway rides, stuff like that. You're gonna go pretty far with this bike. But overall, it's really excellent bike on the road. Would I recommend commuting on this bike? Probably not. I've commuted on it to and from work, multiple times now, and it gets the job done for sure. But the weight of the bike and the way that, the seating position is, which we'll go into in a little bit, I just don't really recommend this bike being more of a commuter bike. I think you should get something smaller if you're going to go to and from work and you're doing mostly city driving. Not highway. So I wouldn't recommend it for commuting. That's just my own personal opinion on it, but I'm sure most of other people, disagree with me and they'll commute on this thing no problem. You can do it for sure, but it's not the type of bike that I would say is comfortable commuting on. The next thing is going to be the off-road capability of this bike. Personally, I think it's a great setup for off-road. This is going to be a 21-inch front wheel, and then this is going to be a 17-inch rear wheel on the back. The tires themselves are the Dunlop Trail Max Mix Tours. They're not the best tire for off-road, but it does have a little knob here, not much. They will pick up in the dirt, for sure, dirt, gravel, even rocky terrain, like what I rode a few weeks ago, as you guys saw in my other video. They definitely will grip. I didn't even air down my tires, and for the most part, they picked up pretty well. Now, I would say if you went anything faster than me, if you go 30, 40, 50 miles an hour off-road, yeah, you're probably going to start slipping. But if you go anywhere from 15 to 25, maybe even 30 miles per hour off-road, you're probably going to be fine. You just kind of have to take it easy because these are not knobby tires. Are they the worst tire to have? No. Are they the best tire to have? No. They get the job done. I would say they're maybe 60% on-road, 30 or 40% off-road. That's how I would probably rate them, just in my own opinion. Overall, just the off-road capabilities are kind of endless with this bike. This bike is definitely going to really shine, not necessarily in tight, difficult terrain, but longer fire roads, longer dirt roads, longer just roads that, obviously are not paved, and more so in a travel capacity rather than an enduro or hard extreme, tight technical section capacity. This thing is definitely going to be way better than the V-Strom 650 XT and the V-Strom 1000. Now, I haven't ridden any of those bikes, so again, I don't want to jump to conclusion, but this thing is specifically designed for off-road riding. That's why it's the DE, Dual Explorer. So it definitely is going to be the number one as far as shining off-road as an adventure bike. Big Rock Moto, shout out to him, Ian over there. He even said in one of his videos a while back that this V-Strom itself, this is totally different. This V-Strom is totally different from any other V-Strom that's ever come before, which is you know, kind of a blessing to hear, because I've never ridden any of those other V-Stroms. The only V-Strom I have is this one, and this is the only one that I've ridden. So this bike has 8.7 inches of travel up front. It has 8.7 inches of travel in the rear, and the ground clearance is actually the same. It's 8.7. So as you can see, for an adventure bike, that's actually not bad, but for dual sports that I've owned in the past, that's actually pretty low. When I was riding off-road, I definitely recommend standing as much as you can, because especially if you're on rocky terrain, on any, you know, adventure bike, dual sport, you're gonna feel the bumps. You know, the more that you stand up, the better that the suspension is able to, you know, work itself in. If you're standing, any weight distribution that you have on the seat is gonna weigh down the rear. Don't necessarily know in the front if it would weigh it down, but in the rear it's definitely going to feel it, and you tend to feel more bumps and stuff like that in the rear, probably more than you do in the front, but the front plays a big role as well from my own experience. So standing up as much as possible on this bike and getting comfortable with standing and balancing and practicing, it's going to be the best bet for you. You don't want to be sitting the entire time. It's just going to wreak havoc on your spine. It's going to wreak havoc on your, you know, your whole riding demeanor. Some of the advantages of getting the DE in a bike like this is it has rebound dampening and compression. So I haven't messed with any of the rebound or the compression. The compression, from my understanding, is right here. And then the rebound dampening, which is going to be right, let's see if I can get a better picture of that. It's going to be right there. That's to kind of control the shock absorbent of every time that it's hitting an impact on dirt or whatever it is that you're hitting. Obviously, this bike has adjustable preload as well. So the rebound and compression dampening is up front, and then the preload, as you know, it's only in the rear. What's cool about this preload is that it has an adjustable knob. I believe it has like 30 something clicks to it. I was reading the manual and I think it said it was about 30 clicks. So it has a lot. I just have it on the default setting, which is 12. I find that 12 works for me. Will I eventually possibly tweak the rebound and compression dampening up front? Absolutely, at some point, once I get comfortable, once I get more experienced. You know, I'm still technically a novice, so I'm learning this all as I go. But that is kind of the cool thing with this bike, is most of the Honda lineup, or even some of the Kawasaki lineup, depending on if you get a dual sport or like a KLR adventure bike, something like that, they don't always have the compression and rebound. They have either rebound or preload, or they have no rebound or compression in the front, and you have solely just preload in the back. So it is cool that they have 3 different settings on this bike for the price that you pay. I think that that's actually really cool. All right, so let's get into the seat height. So this seat is 33.6 inches. Now, for most of you that are riding an enduro bike, most of you are like, oh, this bike is probably going to be way shorter. Well, it depends. It's all perspective. It's all kind of what you make of it. For me, even at a 5'10" rider with about a 32 to 33 inch inseam, I actually find that this bike is fairly tall. And I've ridden other bikes before, and I felt that they're tall, but this bike not only feels tall, but it's mainly because I think the weight that it gives off makes it feel taller. So if you're somebody that likes to ride dual sports or adventure bikes and you still want to get a foot on the ground, this bike is probably not going to be the bike for you. I cannot flat foot this bike. I'm actually pretty much almost on my tippy toes with this bike. I'm between my balls of my heels, or balls of my, I always get that confused. Balls of my feet and my tippy toes when I'm at stoplights, or if I'm at a stop in general. And then same thing off-road, you know, I'll be on the balls of my feet or my tippy toes if I get into a technical or tight situation or a sudden stop. It is manageable, but the suspension doesn't squish as much down when you're on it, like maybe like a Honda, because they have softer suspension, or maybe even the Yamaha XT250, the TW. They're probably going to have squishier suspensions. Plus they have lighter weight. So again, if you're kind of scared of, you know, seat height in general, I wouldn't recommend this bike. It is a very tall bike, and it is a very big bike as well. from first glance. The weight is not actually bad. It's actually very manageable, but you still feel it regardless. Whether you're parking, you're coming to a stop, you're off-road and you dump this bike, whatever, you will feel the weight of it. Now, picking it up, I've only dropped it once, and it was in this driveway actually because of that freaking lock right there, and it wasn't bad. It was actually a lot more manageable than I had thought. Now, I was on a grade right here on this, it's like a little slope that we have here in the driveway. I was on a grade when I did it, but again, I actually felt that this bike was easier to pick up than my KLR that I had, even though it's way bigger, way heavier. The weight distribution on it is actually fairly well. I don't know how Suzuki engineered it exactly. I don't know all the ergonomics with that. But I think that picking this bike up is really not that bad. I believe this that's attached to the rotor is actually the ABS that comes standard on the bike. There is no off ABS model. It actually works great on the dirt in the front. Just on the rear, you want to shut it off because you don't want to lock up the rear wheel off-road, which can happen. What's interesting is Suzuki actually put a parking light in here, which I've never seen on any other bikes. So we'll start with the warning lights. So as you can see, that's going to be your light. Again, most people are like, oh man, this thing is too, small. It's not going to light up everything. Honestly, it does. It's an LED light, and it's better to have that than halogen, in my opinion. Everybody's going to have mixed reviews though about that. Rear tail light. Again, the lighting is really, really cool. So again, you have this parking light. This comes on by default, like I said, when you have the bike just on in general. That's going to be just your regular low beam light, and then you have your high beam on the bottom. I have the high beam actually on right now. This button right here, they have it labeled as pass because essentially you can hit that to signal at cars, or if someone cuts you off, you can quickly just hit that button. So that's going to be mainly, I think, all the lighting. So kind of winding down here, we have the tires of the bike. Now I know I spoke kind of briefly about them. Let me go into a little bit more detail. So again, these are the Dunlop Trail Max tires, still have the nipples on them. Again, they're pretty decent off-road, but they're really, really good on-road. They have a slight knob to them, but barely. Not anything super aggressive. Again, they hook up well. I imagine that if you air down the tires, you're going to get a lot more traction and grip off-road as long as you're riding conservatively. What is really cool about these is they are spoked wheels, so you don't have the aluminum casts like some of the other adventure bikes to have, because they're not really off-road oriented if they have those. So you want these spokes just in general for debris, rocks, stuff like that. You don't want cast wheels. They're just not great off-road. So it is cool that they come equipped with that. The air pressures on these, it's 33 in the front, 36 in the back PSI. So if you want to, go off-road, anywhere from 20, 30%, maybe 25%, you want to air down in the front to the back. So for example, if I was going off-road on this bike, this is how I would do it, which I already have off-roaded on this bike, but in the future, I'm going to air down to 25 in the front, and then I will air down to 27 in the rear. You want to be careful to not air down too much in the event that you puncture anything off-road, or not puncture, but you don't want your rim to get damaged because there's lower pressures in the front too much. So I wouldn't recommend, in my own opinion, airing down to like 20 and 18 on this bike. People do it, and for the most part they'll probably get away with it and be fine, but you take a bigger risk. So when you're air down conservatively, but don't have your pressures all the way up to 36 because you're going to lose traction. The one thing that service manuals don't really tell you is what pressure, if you do have an off-road motorcycle, off-pavement, dual-purpose, adventure bike, they don't really tell you what pressures to go down. They actually tell you to keep the air pressures on all the time. You don't want to do that. You're just going to lose grip. You're going to lose traction. I could probably go a little bit faster off-road knowing that my pressure is down a little bit more off-road. But the crucial thing is when you go back on the pavement to air up. Do not just, I've done this before. You're going to wear your tread down a lot quicker if you have lower pressures in the front and the rear. Brakes overall are pretty damn well, man. I mean, these brakes, in my opinion, are definitely going to be better than any dual sport I've had before, simply because they have front and rear ABS. On the street, I will always have my ABS on. I will say that braking on this bike is a little bit harder than some of the other bikes that I've had for me in general. That's going to vary based on the rider, but for me, because of the weight and how sensitive the brakes are, I do find that I do have to kind of still get used to the brakes in general. And I am getting used to them, but it may take some time for you like it does me. Compared to some of my other bikes that I've had in the past, they're definitely going to be better than, you know, a disc in the front and a drum in the back, or vice versa. You know, they're definitely much better. So the brakes are really, really good on this bike. No complaints there. They're actually, I think, overly good. I think they could be a little bit softer,